an inch in the south, maybe up to 4 to 6 and potentially more as you go further north. Though the forecast sounds like it's backing off a little more favorably. We also have the potential for ice in this event, more to our southeast of the Raleigh-Durham area. But with that, we do have crews prepared, ready to respond in case we start having down trees, with the initial focus of getting everything off the roadway. So right now, most of our trucks are loaded and out and staged across the area. You'll see them on our ramps and off on the shoulders and in various locations around the interstate and primary system, so that when the snow does come in, we're ready to respond. What that'll look like, initially we'll be taking and you wait a few minutes until you start seeing accumulation on the roadway. Essentially for us, whenever you can no longer see the lines on the pavement, that's our indication that we need to start spreading material. And then as we get a little more accumulation from there, that's when we drop our blades and start clearing off the roadway. We'd encourage everybody, if you don't need to be out there today, please do not be out there today. Obviously with snow and ice, that's not a good time to be on the roadway if you don't have to be. But knowing that folks will have to be, we're taking every precaution and step that we can to reopen the roads as soon as possible.
So Doug, obviously we know that you guys have laid, close to 1 million gallons in the state. You said 360 gallons of brine here. What though, when the snow starts to fall or the freezing lane, what are the first areas that you're going to start to clear? I mean, is there priority among all of that?
Yeah, the priority will be initially on the interstate and primary system and major secondaries. Major secondary, think Wade Avenue, that functions as much as an interstate as a secondary route. That's where we function. That's where we start. That's where our initial brine applications go down. That way, if we preserve interstate traffic, if we need to get resources into the area or other places through the state, that system's open. After that, we go into the main secondaries so that emergency officials can take and respond as they need across the region. And the last thing we'll get into will be the residential subdivisions, because if you can get out of your residential subdivision but the rest of them are clogged, it doesn't do you any good. So that's generally what we respond. We're in a little better situation this time, Storm 3, in that we went 2 years without operators or having to do any operations. We've got a few storms under our belt. Some of our new drivers, we've been able to pair them up and get the experience, so we're good to go.
When you have such a range in impacts, maybe an inch here but for a little bit north, does that maybe complicate planning or cause any creating challenges when it comes to planning and kind of situating machinery?
No, we're good to go. The difference between 1 and 4 inches on a plow operation doesn't impact us. When you start getting to 8 inches of snow or more, that's when things complicate. It's harder to push, and we start having traction issues with our larger plows. As they spread their material out, they get lighter, and so it's harder for them to operate. But the interesting thing on this storm is that the way the forecast is playing out, we're going to see some snow through today and into tonight, but then there's going to be a pause and then a potential wraparound event where we might get some additional accumulation. With that, you in some ways it's like restarting the clock. If we get an inch of snow out on the interstate, we're back out on the interstate just like the first flake happened, trying to reopen those roads, and it starts us all over again. So hopefully we won't see a significant accumulations in the morning.
And does your staffing change when you're in preparation mode versus kind of response mode that we're shifting to now?
Very much so. Some of the initial operations that we were doing, we were running 60 trucks across the division. Obviously, as we move to snow and ice actually pushing, we'll be 240 trucks, potentially running over 300 total pieces of equipment out pushing. So this is the next couple hours is we'll be all on board trying to reopen things as quickly as we can. From a material standpoint, we're in very good shape. So we're not having to hold back. It's just, what that'll do is start looking at our transition point. So at some point, we'll have to start switching out drivers, giving them a break, and with us, depending on how that secondary wave comes in, we'll drive that a little bit. But from a total operations, the average public won't see a difference. For my area that I'm responsible for, we're primarily calling for snow. So we're running off of our standard base plan like we've done for the last few events, with the exception of staging some crews and equipment that if we start seeing down trees due to ice accumulations, and we're looking more towards Wake County and potentially in Franklin County for potential impacts.
Obviously, we're on Storm 3, Doug. What's the biggest challenge in this one versus the two we've had previous?
We're in pretty good shape, actually. I feel more comfortable on this one than the last two. We initially, not having run the equipment for a couple of years, we were worried about maybe having some mechanical failures. At this point, anything that wasn't going to work well in the first two events has been ironed out. We're ready. We're in good shape.
As some people did go into the office today, they might see changes on the road when they're coming back, but also seeing those new systems kind of progress through the week. How could that change the way that drivers, if they do get on the road, kind of impacts their commute?
Yeah, that's one of the things. If we can get folks home before the snow comes in, it'll be a lot better operation for everybody. If they wait until the end of the day when we have significant accumulation on the ground, then we run the chance of having accidents, which slows down the response and just prolongs the event and puts people in harm's way.
You mentioned the deeper the snow can sometimes complicate things. Obviously, Henderson, those folks are expected maybe 6 to 8 inches versus down here. Does that mean, have you shifted gear and people up there to kind of be ahead of that?
At 8 inches, we're still good with what resources we have. If we start seeing more than 8 inches, then we look at moving more of our heavy equipment and more of our motor graders north to be able to address it. But so far, this one looks like a textbook storm.
Walk us through coordination with the National Guard and Highway Patrol, whether it's identifying disabled vehicles, making sure the roads are more clear for your plows to operate.
At an event like this, they'll take and stage together at the Joint Forces Headquarters Command Center to be able to have communications back. Also, our statewide Transportation Operations Center here located in Raleigh, but they serve the whole state, it is very helpful to help coordinate whenever we have issues.
Cool.
It's great.
Very good. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
your
Doug.
time.
Stay